We'll just wait for a minute or two for everyone. We'll just wait for a minute or two. Good evening, everyone. Good evening from LA, and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Um, Welcome to panel 9 of the webinar series Indigenous Peoples, Heritage and Landscape in the Asia Pacific, Knowledge Co-Production, Policy Change, and Empowerment. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge that as a land grant institution, the Department of Anthropology, Center for Southeast Asian Studies, and Asia Pacific Center at UCLA acknowledges the Gabrielino Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tovangar, Los Angeles Basin, and the Southern Channel Islands. We are grateful for the support of the Wenner-Gren Foundation for Anthropological Research through the webinars on the Future of Anthropology grant, the Henry Luce Foundation, the New England University for First Peoples Rights Center, the National Chenji University Center for Taiwan, Philippines, Indigenous Knowledge, Local Knowledge, and Sustainable Studies, or CityPILS, the UCLA Coates Institute of Archaeology, and the UCLA Asia Pacific Center. This panel is co-sponsored by the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, the SEMEO-SPAFA, or Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts, or SEMEO-SPAFA. The UCLA Department of Anthropology, UCLA Center for Southeast Asian Studies, the University of Hawaii at Manoa Center for Southeast Asian Studies, Ifugao State University, the Partido State University, and the Save the Ifugao Terraces Movement are co-hosts of the webinar series. I am Steven Acabado, an associate professor of anthropology at UCLA and the co-convener of these webinar series. My colleague, Professor Dawei Kwan of NCCU, will uh, provide a brief background of this panel.
Hi, Stephen and everyone. Good morning from Taiwan. It's my honor to introduce you this panel. As we know, Southeast Asia traditional textile are world-renowned and valued as expression of cultural identity, from the weaving and dyeing process to the symbolic of their aesthetic and use. However, local knowledge and actual method to preserve such deterioration from organic material is an understudied field. To identify tropical climate appropriate, locally sourced, sustainable, and cost-effective method that can be adopted by local practitioners working in the preservation of traditional textile, SEMEO-SPAFA collaborated with local researchers on the region-wide project to collect, document, and compile invaluable indigenous knowledge on caring for textile. Data collected included plant materials and method for wet cleaning, dry cleaning, stain removal, insect mitigation, storage, and associated spiritual beliefs. A first study of its kind is brought together a dynamic group of textile professional, museum experts, conservators, historians, scientists, and anthropologists, eager to research, chronicle, and learn more about their own national and indigenous practice before the knowledge is lost. So I would like to invite our Mady to further introduce our panelist and moderator today. Mady.
Thank you, Professor Daya. My name is Madeline Yakel. I'm a graduate student at UCLA, and today I'll be introducing our panelists and our moderator for panel 9, of the webinar series. Lilian Garcia Alonso Alba is professor and co-chief of the Laboratory of Traditional and Sustainable Technologies for Conservation and coordinator of the Scientific Axis for the Master's Program at the National School of Conservation, Restoration, and Museography, NCRIM. Her focus is traditional technologies and materials researcher with technical studies in laboratory science. As a professor, she aims to generate interest in the rescue and appreciation of cultural and traditional heritage as a non-toxic, safe, and necessary alternative in contemporary restoration. She has a BA in Art Conservation, MA in Social Studies, and PhD in Mesoamerican Studies. Lilian has contributed to publications and workshops in biology, physics, and conservation for the American Institute of Conservation, also for the International Committee for Museums and Collections of Science and Technology, and the International Council of Museums, and UNESCO, and Getty Institute, and Simio SPAFA, the National Autonomous University of Mexico, the Universidad Iberoamericana, the Autonomous Universities of Morelos and Michoacan, and the North American Textile Conservation Conference. Julia M. Brennan is founder of Caring for Textiles, and she has worked in the field of textile conservation since 1985. She is committed to conservation outreach and the protection of cultural property and providing stakeholders with sustainable skills. Since 2000, she has led multiple conservation workshops in Bhutan, Madagascar, Algeria, Indonesia, Laos, and Thailand, Cambodia, Taiwan, and Rwanda in museums, monasteries, genocide memorials, and community-based collections. Julia has a BA from Columbia University and a master's in art crime from the Association for Research in Crimes Against Art. Anissa M. Gultam is director of Ras Al Khaimah National Museum, United Arab Emirates, where she works with local Emirati communities developing rotating heritage exhibitions for the ethnography and archaeology wings. As a BA archaeology student, Universitas Indonesia, her focus was tangible material culture. Her subsequent Fulbright Fellowship, an MA in Museum Communications, University of the Arts, Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, USA, built on community engagement initiatives. She launched community-focused group discussions as part of a museum master plan and feasibility project at a provincial museum in West Papua in 2012, one of the several Indonesian government-supported museum revitalization projects since 2010. She was a key partner developing the museum kind of traditional cloth in Bali with an emphasis on the intersection of Indigenous knowledge and public programming, as well as extensive documentation of Southeast Asian traditional cloth. She continues to be actively involved with cultural network initiatives in Asia and Europe with great interest in museum decolonization. Mud Sharul bin Abghani is curator at the Division of Research and Documentation, Department of Museums Malaysia, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Cultural Malaysia. He has curated several exhibitions, including Batik by the Yard, Design and Innovation, 1960s to 1990s, Batik Sarong, A Legacy for Today and Tomorrow, and a World Costume Dolls exhibition. He co-curated with Chetna Bhatt, Zandra Rhodes, a lifelong love affair with textiles, and with Japan design journalist Noriko Kawakami, the exhibition Japan Handmade, designed from Kyoto, the collection of Masataka Hoso and Toru Tsuji. Sharul's research is based on textiles, costume, fashion, and culture, especially in Batik Malaysia's industry. His museum career began as a curator, Department of Museum and Antiquity, 2004 to 2009, followed by curator to the Army Museum in Port Dickson under Ministry of Defense Malaysia, 2009 to 2011. From 2011 to 2018, he worked at the National Textile Museum until his current position at the Department of Museums Malaysia. Our moderator today is Lynn Ann Moreau. She is Program Officer at the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts, or CMIO-SPAFA. Her focus is on strategic planning and overseeing projects in archaeology, arts, and heritage, with an emphasis on promoting the symbiotic relationship between nature and culture and exploring the values of Indigenous knowledge for sustainable development. A Royal Society of the Arts Fellow, her interests include how heritage and traditional wisdom of Indigenous communities, in particular Southeast Asian sea nomads, work in tandem with the environment. She has a BA and MA in Southeast Asian Studies from the School of Oriental and African Studies, and an MA in Information and Communication at the University from Paris Sorbonne Nouvelle. Previous work experience includes the Asia Society Texas Center, the UN Assistance to the Khmer Rouge Trials, at the Center for Khmer Studies, and the French Research Center on Contemporary Southeast Asia. And so with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to our moderator, Lynn Ann Moreau, for panel 9.
Thank you, Maddie, for the introduction. Thank you, Dawei, for outlining our panel, and thank you, Stephen. On behalf of CMIO-SPAFA, we would like to welcome our viewers and to thank UCLA and the Wenner Grant Foundation for supporting this webinar series. So Dawei actually introduced this research very well, mentioning that the study that we're about to talk about today brought together a group of dynamic textile professionals, museum experts, conservators, art historians, anthropologists who were eager to research, record their Indigenous practices before the knowledge is lost. Now, this research project had about 20 researchers from across Southeast Asia conducting local research, and 4 of us are joining us today from across the world. And Maddie already introduced their backgrounds very well, so thank you for that, Maddie. So maybe I'm going to start with Julia, who has been with the project since 2013 and is actually responsible for moving it forward. And maybe she could tell us what this research is about and summarize the findings for us. Julia, could you put your mic on, please?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Lynn, you can put up a slide. This research started primarily because I have been teaching textile conservation and care of collections in Southeast Asia, and for about 6 or 7 years in Thailand, based at the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles in Bangkok. And between there and Laos and Cambodia and even Bhutan, over the years, I've learned that I've been exporting Western conservation knowledge and realizing that there is a lot to be learned from the actual traditions that exist in each place where we are trying to preserve the materials. And so it was really, this whole effort was fueled by my own interest to try and bring together all of the stakeholders to really explore and start to learn and study their own cultures, understand the textiles. Many people I work with are urban-based, and they're somewhat disconnected from their villages or from their mother home. But urging people to go home and learn more about their own traditions has opened up a whole world of knowledge that isn't something you necessarily learn in structured school. So it was an effort to really try to bring local knowledge, Indigenous information into the field of conservation and preventive conservation, textile conservation in particular, and search for traditional methods and solutions and actual remedies to try and implement conservation that would be locally based and sustainable. And in the next slide, you'll see that, we combine interviews in the field. Our work was first based on a pilot project in Thailand with Spafa Simeo. And Lynn, you can advance to the next slide, or should I do it? You can do it. Our pilot project was based in northern Thailand, Phra, which Simeo Spafa had quite a lot of work with before in both indigo dyeing and local architecture and other projects within the community. So the community was already engaged with researchers. There was a group of people, there was a sense of trust and exchange of information and knowledge among both outside researchers from Thailand and the community. And so it made a lot of sense to start our pilot project there, and we expanded it then to some of the weaving villages of the Queen of Thailand, which also had a predetermined sense of trust for our group of researchers. And from there, we conducted interviews and collected actual data about the plants that are used to clean and to do stain removal, to try and keep insects away, and also methods for storage, and also all of the spiritual beliefs and perhaps superstitions and things that go with the care of textiles. And it was a remarkable amount of data that we came up with. And based on that, we decided to then take the project across Southeast Asia, again, in partnership with Simeo Spafa, identifying the partners. Lynn, can we advance the slide? I don't think I can do it myself. Can you move the slide along? Lynn? Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. For some reason, I can't move it. To the next slide. I'm sorry, but I would like to advance the slides and I don't seem to have the capacity.
Yeah, so I'm moving the slides around, but we
you are?
Yeah, so it should, right now I'm on the plants that were identified.
Okay, I'm not seeing it. Okay, I'll just carry on though. I can't see the slides. So we identified 62 plants and put into databases, and the work was done through these 10 countries, organized with researchers, 3 of who are on our panel tonight, collecting not only plant data, but also recipes and actual plants, and interviewing a minimum of 10 people, and then compiling that data into country reports with the goal of then bringing everyone together for some regional meetings, specifically to share knowledge, but also to test some of the plant-based recipes against some of the chemical recipes and cleaners that we've traditionally used in the West for textile conservation. So a way to take this indigenous knowledge and then put it up into an actual scientific analysis and testing, and see how successful it is compared to the chemical treatments. And what we found was that among all of these 60 different plants that were identified, more than 60% are no longer used, but they are collected and remembered, particularly by older interviewees. So it's a kind of retrospective knowledge that was presented and recalled by people. And different countries had more indigenous knowledge available. In places like Singapore, it was quite difficult to find local communities that used any kind of plant-based materials or even recalled them. So I think overall what we learned was that there's a group of elders, which is why we say before it's gone, there's a group of elders who still retain this knowledge, and we're very, very happy to share both the information and the plants and the recipes, and pass this information on to the next generation. And so it was through these interactions that we were able to gather this data and put together a really formidable groups of plant databases in multiple languages and the country reports, and then draw conclusions and do analysis and testing. And that's how it was brought together. So since I wasn't really following slides, I hope that what I said sort of matched what you were seeing on the screen. I mean, among 62 plants identified, it was everything from lots of herbs and things you might use in the kitchen, pandan leaves, peppers, cloves, tobacco leaves. Many things seem to be just sort of a kind of kitchen wisdom. But the interesting thing is that if they're used properly, they can work. And they dovetail beautifully with the whole concept of preventive conservation and integrated pest management, for example, which requires daily, regular checking, and not the use of chemicals, but the use of human ingenuity and patience and monitoring and observation in order to take better care of collections, particularly textiles.
Thank you very much, Julia. I'm sorry, I've been having trouble managing the slides. I've been trying to put it into a desktop version, but thank you for very clearly outlining what we've been doing in this research. I would like to maybe move on to Shah for a bit, because you mentioned how the importance of reaching out to the local community when you were talking about reaching out to PRE and reaching out to the Queens communities with pre-established trust. And so when we engaged the researchers, maybe Shah, you could tell us about where you conducted your research and how you conducted your research?
Hello. Hi. Okay. Speaking about reaching the personas about my research, I'm sorry, it's a bit dark here. It's because I'm having blackout in my office now. Okay. So bad like that. Okay, it's okay. Okay, you still can. Okay.
Loud and clear.
Actually, I'm reaching the respondents by my personal networks, actually from my family and also from colleagues that from the museum itself. And I believe it's at the first time it's challenging to find out who is the best respondent that we need to include in this research. So what we need, I'm having a discussion with my colleagues first that we is suitable to be a respondent to answer all those questions and to give at least traditional recipes to this research. And then when I planning out, and I call my mom itself and talk to her, and suddenly she surprised about this kind of research that I conducted together with SPAFA. She say, my grandmother is also using that before, because she is a kind of the shamans in the big family in the village. So, and the same time she gave me the advice and who to talk and to refer to which person who are capable to give the information about the recipes. Okay, and then I search a few. If maybe we can go to the area. Leanne, my slide, please. Yeah, and I have a few networkings there where I have friends, museum friends, also family, including family, and also colleagues, and a few weavers that I need to interview. So most of the dams actually is a confusing about the recipe, the old recipe, because they are not practicing anymore since they believe the traditional method haven't been appreciated anymore. So the young generations doesn't continuously to have interest on this kind of matter because of the commercials, soups comings and everything is modern, and maybe because of the mandate of the government itself looking for the technology and something that Westerners produce, Western produce. So they could a bit confused at the moment to get it. But yes, to drive from Kuala Lumpur to Kelantan to the East Coast, it's a bit because they are most of the dam is especially the weavers who's living in a very deep area nearby the rivers or everything, and to get the I choose actually three stakes there. It's a Kelantan and Terengganu and Pahang because I believe these three stakes is still genuinely having keeping a secret from keeping a secret in their village. By percentage, I need to go through be to know them in because of the friends and family, and they are suddenly giving wanna willing to share their opinions and to share to recall back all the recipes that that is almost gone, but so they are just remind them themselves, recall themselves by what they have practiced before. So, and I suddenly found that is very interesting. There is the words wukuk in the Kelantan is very, wukuk is using the chicken trap. I think Julia's, okay, it's very clear now. Okay, wukuk with using the chicken trap is smoke with the smoking textile smoking technique to the textile. It comes to the idea. It's when we talk about this, it's a dry cleaning method with small with the satangi. I think that in the slide now there is a wukuk. We call in Kelantan wukuk. Yeah, I just found it from a few friends and expertise in textile too. And to be back to hometown to get a trust from them is kind of challenging a little bit because they never get the clear pictures of those recipes. Yeah, they are just asking me to refer to others and others to complete all the recipes. So maybe someone having a techniques, but they are forgetting about the ingredient itself. So they are trying to combine together. When we talk, sometimes I giving a call when I'm interview one each other, calling to another respondent to get the confirmations about the recipes. I think yes.
Yeah, thank you, Shah. I'm just going to interject. You were talking about the method of the chicken trap. So I think now on the screen, viewers can see what you're talking about. You can see the image of the late Ibu Nora Gunawan, who is using the exact method that you're describing of smoking the textile on top of the chicken trap with the setangi incense, or ratus, they would call it in Indonesia, which acts as an effective fumigant for textiles. So, I mean, now that the picture is up, I thought it would be good for viewers to kind of understand and visualize how this is done, and also the ingenuity behind it, and how it's a safe way to protect your textile from pests, and it won't affect it with stains or anything. So sorry, yeah, I just wanted to interject with that so that people can see. And now that your slides are up, I think it's wonderful to show all of these people who were involved in your research, and that you reached out to your family. You mentioned, kind of you approached people. They were a little bit confused about why you were asking these questions. We actually encountered something similar when we did our research in Prayer in northern Thailand. We approached Kunjan, who was part of the Karen community in northern Thailand, and when we asked questions like how do you treat this textile if it's stained or needs to be repaired, and they just looked at us a little bit with bewilderment and said, "Well, you just weave a new one." I mean, of course. And then we just have these fun interactions, sharing with people. And yes, and all these women, they know how to weave. They've known how to weave since they were teenagers. And so yes, that's great that you've told us about your research process and where you drew the information from, how that happened. And now afterwards, once you had this information, how did you share it afterwards?
Okay, it's actually to sustain this kind of heritage to be gone like this. So I made a decisions to sharing this with conducting experimental workshop. At first, together with museum colleagues in the museums itself, and stay in the discussions and try to find the exactly amounts of each herbs or ingredient, and put it together in the it's like smoking a dry cleaning method with the smoked. It's a satangi. We don't know exactly. Maybe in the scientifically we know how much, how many milligram, how many milligram that we put together to burn it in it. But in the traditional way, they just follow their instincts only. It kind of it's not easy to get understand how much, but when we try to do it experimental, we try to separate a few groups from and we try to add on. We measure the ingredient itself, and we tried another method, maybe some ingredients as local ingredients. It's like akawani, is a citronella root. It's not easy to get it because you need a long process to dry it out. So what we choose. We try to the process. We try the akawani at least 1 week, and we have another ingredient, put it together, and when we separate the three groups, like three groups, it gives a different result. Means it comes from like a first group, it could be more perfuming. Second group is a more feeling a bit just a mild, and the third group is a bit having a spice in the and then I from the result every each material I using the batik cloth actually to avoid the damage to other. Now just a batik cloth only, and I couldn't find any stains and in the textile itself. And when I store it in a nearby in some place, it could be not to. I'm not sure. Maybe not to attract the pest itself, especially when I it's just small experiments, but it's still going on. But I just confused because they put because in the ingredient itself you have sugar sugar from sugar. It's like you can see in the pictures here. There is sugar. We call the sugar cane sugar. It's a raw cane sugar add-ons together in this recipe. So I'm not sure it can be attract the pests or not, especially the ants. And so it's a bit really exciting experience, and those people is a big especially from most of them is a museum staff, museum colleagues in museum staff, and people who are active in the heritage. So they are feeling shocked with this kind of technique because they never get any idea or any information about this kind of recipes before from Italy until when I started conducting and experimental workshop. It's really enjoyable because it's a good step for a museum conservations to have a local products. I mean, a local material. Then it gives a less cost on our music industry. So the local products that you can buy in the market, but you can plant by yourself nearby the museums itself. So and I think it's a very good thing because I believe it's good for environmental too. So
yes, as you said, these are great solutions that are environmentally friendly, and it's really great that you've been sharing this knowledge with your museum community and your colleagues, and that you've been conducting all these experiments to put them to use and to validate their effectiveness. So how are your colleagues enthusiastic about using these methods, and are they going to be kind of institutionalized in textile conservation at the Department of Museums Malaysia?
We are stay in to get approved. We try. It's a leading for further research because we never testing exactly to our to the collections of the collection, but we just using just another experimental material. It's like batik at the moment. So if this kinds just maybe for the storage, we are using for a few things, that storage, perfuming. We are still, but in the we need to monitor them quietly. We have schedules to every time. This is considered still on the ongoing, but we try to knowing what the exactly time to change each plants material, that because I got advice from conservators itself. Some material can give a good impact to kill to banish the insects, the pests, but they can be invited others pests coming to the storage. So it's a long way to go to confirm that these traditional methods can be used in the museums, because we are a bit confusing and a bit not so much confidence like the old elderly people did before. So I'm just wondering why my great-great-grandmother stored their very precious textile in the box where they put it together with the flowers and herbs together. But maybe because of the young generations never get exactly the method is not continuously, so maybe we are a bit confusing and a bit in paranoid to have that, to follow that the old recipes in the modern worlds now. So yeah, to connect between the old generations and the young generations is not much easier, because we are separately by the technology itself. So some young generations believe they need to follow the laboratory technicals, what theoretically from the westernized done. So Auntie, we are forget the old generations, and then the old generation also is a little bit confusing and yeah, feeling untrusty to give the past what they have it to young generation, because maybe the young generation cannot copy so well. So to have the connections, I'm in the middle now to make the young generations now to confidence what the elderly people done before. So and to get tries from the elderly people, it takes time to maybe in the future we will invite them to the museum itself, how the laboratory, modern laboratory works. So let's the scientific and the traditional method combine together. I very glad that Spafa and Julia and Lillian's comes together on this, and that's me as something good for music industry itself, because of course museum we try to reduce the cost of taking off our material culture itself. So because yes, to taking care of the material culture very costly every year. Yeah, we spend a lot. We don't want to spend a lot of our money for we try to reduce, we try to balance it. What because you know they follow the mandate of the government itself. What exactly Malaysian wants in their life, in daily life. If they want a museum or the material culture can be up in this to sustain in the culture, in the heritage, means they will love to be put the effort to work together to help us to take care of the material culture itself.
Thank you so much, Shah, for sharing how you did your research. I'll never forget when when we had the regional forum in Bangkok, and you actually pulled up this slide and showed all the people that you reached out to in your personal networks, which was so refreshing to see. And where you sourced all of this invaluable knowledge that's environmentally friendly. And so while we're on the topic of a community research and environment and landscape, I would like to move over to Anissa. Maybe if you could tell us, Anissa, if you could tell us where you conducted your research, what you found, and how the community felt about it, summarize how it went in a nutshell, that would be great. Thank you, Anissa.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Lynn, can you help me with my slide?
Where is it? Yes, sure, no problem. I can do that. So, all right, there we go.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, so we this is a quite interesting research because well, my background was is archaeology, but when I during my tenure working in the kain museum, kain means cloth in Bali, I discover actually new things, living tradition, and then the community and how the community values cloth, because in Bali they still I mean the tradition of wearing cloth is still very much a daily use. So for them it's just regular, like, oh, okay, this one traditional. We as researcher we see it, oh, this is traditional, this is contemporary. For them it's just cloths. It's like it's just part of their identity and they're part of their daily wear, because when they do the daily pray, they have to wear cloth. Men and male and female, they have to wear it. So at least they will wear this their traditional cloth at least 2 to 3 times a day. So my you see in my first slide, this is kind of like the conclusion of my research at the time, is that we don't always wash our clothes. So um, let's see first Bali. I mean, everyone knows Bali more than the country of Indonesia. Sometimes Bali is amazing because it's still 90% Hindu beliefs among 17,000 islands of a country that is actually 90% Muslim. And so the traditions are still alive. They don't really see what is the past, what is now, but it's just seeing it how aspect of the material culture is just part of their daily life, and some things are left behind, but some of them are still remembering. You can see in this map, these are the regions in Bali that they make cloth. So different areas in Bali, they make different kind of cloth, and they have their own self identity and self ownership and their own styles. And the making methods that they have, they are mostly with the ikat method and a weaving method. But then there's also the batik method. You see this man is stamping wax to do the diathesis technique of batik, and this lady with the brush is brushing wax on an indigo dyed cloth. So the batik method comes a bit later, because the original methods are with ikat and weaving, because that's actually the majority of cloth making traditional in Indonesia. Batik is just because it was in Java, was kind of like the dominant power. since 7th century. So a lot of the trade and everything actually brought batik more faster throughout the archipelago. Um, and as you see, these batik methods also used by a more kind of contemporary development of the traditional made cloth in Bali. And then the material and the dye that they use. Um, so because these are mostly ikat and weaving methods, so they dyed the threads. As you can see, this the one with the purple and yellow color, these are a combination of an already dyed thread and metal thread. So they also involve metal threads in their weavings. But they are also involving material like this cotton in this guy's hand. They have two kind of cotton, the white colored and the already kind of faint brown color. So they use this also. And they also use natural dye, but in limited number for now, because there's a demand of continuous and larger demand of making more cloth. So so it's only in limited areas, and there are some part that produce indigo, but this in limited area. But this is something that I will talk about a bit later. Now, on the next slide, you will see this is just a like a small picture of like the larger usage of cloth in Balinese daily life. So they have their daily prayer, they have uh, they have the wedding, they have the big ceremonies, and then they have the temple birthdays. So if you are a small family, you have your small family temple, you have your bigger clan temple, and then you have your village temple, and then you have the island temple, and every temple have their own birthday, and every birthday have this ritual. So it's like a very rich kind of schedule of wearing cloth as part of your ritual and in your daily life. So for them, it's just still very natural. So the demand of cloth in Bali is very large. So sometimes they to have more access like to cheaper cloth or faster, they make copies of the traditional ones with like a more mass produced methods, but they still keep the ones that are with using traditional cloth, and they don't always wear it. So like you see the one on the bottom right, these ladies with the crowns, so they are wearing this kind of Balinese style weaving, and that having a kind of like a red brownish color. And there's a treatment for the thread before they start the weaving, to apply some kind of oil, and then mixed with, and then it will later on kind of like processing with the dye. So it's kind of like increase the color, the red color. And this application of sweat, sorry, application of oil, they see this, it can actually maintain the color. So what they do, they don't really wash it very often, this kind of cloth. What they do, they like to wear it and then air it, and then put it back in their cabinet. And maybe they will use like clove or pepper to kind of maintain the dryness. But they have a belief, the more you wear it, the more the sweat from your body kind of maintain this lively red color of the dye, just like how they use this kind of different kind of oil when they treat the thread. So that's what they do with their original weaving cloth. And in some of the, we can see the next slide, in some of the resource persons that I interview, so we have three groups of resource persons. That's the users and collectors, and then the makers, and then the experts. So from all of this, they have a memory of using kind of like larak that being used to clean batik, but this kind of method is used from their grandmothers um, generation, and it's not easily widely used anymore. They don't really, it's not really popular. It's not easy to get the material. What they do now is not it's like what I said, they don't really wash their cloth, and an understanding that I receive either from the user and collectors and also the expert. Some of the makers, they give specific direction depending on the materials. There's even one of the maker, a few of the makers kind of suggest, if you really have to clean the stain, use a very soft kind of soap, like a dishwashing soap. So it's more softer than the regular detergent, you know. And another finding that I found in this research is my interaction in one of the experts. There's this chief village in Pejeng. This is a village in Ubud, one of the uh, rich cultural heritage in the area, because literally when you dig a place in this, when you dig the ground in this village, you will find statues from like 13th century or 15th century. So it's a rich cultural heritage place. And this village chief, his name is Pak Chok, he he focused, that guy, yeah, very charismatic guy, and he focused on developing the indigo that was once part of the Balinese traditional cloth making. Now the thing is with indigo, if we can see the last slide, Lynn, indigo is basically something blue, right? So to make this blue color, you have to have the indigo plants, and you have to have a lot, because you have to mix it, and then you have to wait to ferment it, and it smells really strong, and it's like you have to maintain this chain of supply of the material. So what he did, not just not just beyond um, creating innovation through the design with the batik method, he also then worked with the community to start reviving lands that are not very productive in agriculture. He started planting the indigo plant, like it's a collaborative effort with the local village in Bali and also in Nusa Penida Island. So this created a kind of like a new, like a chain, like a cycle, that it maintains something traditional that is slightly contemporary, but uh, he created with the villagers like a whole other environment behind it, and support the continuous development of it. So as an archaeologist that is kind of still a new and undoing anthropology stuff in 2016, these are something really like exciting, because you see there's this kind of continuous understanding, or like the continuous adoption of traditional values, sense of aesthetic, and keeping things alive, but also developing things to become something like new or innovative. So I think this is just really exciting. I mean, thank you so much for involving me on this research. It was really enlightening for me.
Thank you so much, Anissa, for sharing with us all everything about. I think you really put in a nutshell what cloths mean to the Balinese and how it's made, and how they preserve these heritage. And I think what you've talked about in how this Indigo community, for example, have been reviving this heritage. The repercussions have been amazing, and for the creative economy of the village. That's one thing, and also in how it regenerated the landscape. So here you have this like regenerative cycle of where intangible knowledge meets creative economy, meets material culture, meets preservation and revival of the landscape. So a huge takeaway here I see is how this Indigo community in Bali has its own ecosystem of knowledge and landscape and material culture through the making of these textiles and through the production, through preserving them, and through preserving this knowledge. So, and this really fits into the broader context of this webinar, how these are all linked, the cultural heritage with natural heritage. And so with all of these being intertwined, how do you see the future of these cultural and natural ecosystems? Is the one in Bali and others that you know of that you've encountered in your work under threat? Are they undergoing a revival or transformation? Have you seen anything even in your everyday life where you see these things kind of coming back to life?
Well, in my short experience in the world of textile community-based textile in Indonesia, I don't really see a lot that kind of as thriving and as in a complete cycle as this Indigo community in Pejing, Bali, because a lot of them sometimes there are some the issues like there are some groups that try to revive weaving cloth from the eastern part of Indonesia, like from Timor, from Sumba or Nusa Tenggara. There is a problem of disconnection because it's on the other smaller Sunda Islands, which is in the eastern, and the transportation system are not fully developed there. So when the transportation is not quite developed, everything becomes more expensive, right? So there are really great efforts like there's one foundation in Bali that they actually have a team of anthropologists who would go to these villages in the eastern part of Indonesia, and they go to see weavers who actually make the original motifs, and then these take like months for them to get to know the weavers, to reach to them, and then finally get the product. And once the product reach their store in Bali, the costs are already very, very high. So I see for my side, there is a concern of we need to kind of preserve this this somewhat dying tradition, but we can't really afford it. So a lot of this kind of initiative, they aim the market to higher economy level or international tourists, which is for me kind of creating a different kind of concern. Okay, now we are maintaining this, preserving this, but then eventually it's only become part of a smaller portion of the society. Do you know what I mean? Like there is if you know, there's the original batik with the painting method, with the stamp method, and as the batik made with the mass produced, printed batik. The existence of the printed batik, because there's a large demand of this batik, because since the 70s it became part of our uniforms, it becomes of like the national formal wear and everything, but people cannot afford cloths with the old method, but they still have to have it. So this it's I mean, it's just, I guess it's just how naturally things works, but it worries me a bit on how the other initiative hasn't been able to produce something that people can actually afford. Indonesian people can actually afford.
Yes, thank you, Anissa. Indeed, mass production and tourism, of course, have an effect on these activities. And then, while you're here, I'd like to jump to something a little bit more controversial, but I think is extremely relevant in this global climate when we're talking about decolonizing knowledge, decolonizing museums and scholarship. In fact, when we were planning this project from the very beginning, we were kind of concerned about when we were going to collect this knowledge, could it be exploited for commercial gain? I don't know if you remember for the regional forum, for example, you brought the batik attack, which, so on the one hand, this commercialization could potentially contribute to these plants making a comeback, and they have their obvious values for sustainability. They provide opportunities for farming, just as you've shown with the Indigo community in Bali. On the other hand, when you have this mass commercialization or this tourism and all of that, there comes with it sometimes a loss of ownership. So as an activist in decolonizing museum scholarship and practices, how do you feel about how this traditional knowledge is used?
About a week ago, I was moderating this webinar on open data, on hacking your culture and putting your cultural data out there, and we were discussing about the same topic. It's not for commercialism, but also like putting this stuff out there. Like, what about the ownership? There was one museum from New Zealand who works under a big policy of how to treat the treasure, and that's really a heavily concept dealing with the biculturalism between New Zealand, with the Maori, because they are most, like, the question is, if you're putting your data, your cultural data out there, who owns it? But again, who actually really owns it originally? Like, it's the community, right? So there is no one specific person who's kind of like, I have a copyright on this. And there are some cases where a modern time designer who try to commercialize this, and they get a bad feedback, or like a condemnation. Gucci a few times are doing this cultural appropriation. There's even this one famous jewelry maker designer. I'm not sure if he's American or British, but he's based in Bali, and he got his work inspired by Balinese aesthetics, and then he tried to copyright it. And these got a lot of backlash from the community, not just the Balinese community, but also from the design community. It's an ongoing concern, of course. Okay, then who owns it? Everyone, you know. I think this is the spirit of, okay, we are sharing something, right? We are making something. There's this thing that I learned from Pachok, the Indigo guy, and my boss in Museum Kain, the late Ronnie Siswandi. These are two creative men who has the concept of traditional motifs from Java and from Bali, and they create something contemporary that kind of like, it looks new, but it's actually a combination of different kind of traditional methods. And they are not afraid that people trying to copy their work, because when you copy, it's still not the original. You know what I mean? When you got a printed batik, it's still a different value than an original painted batik, right? And there will always be a difference between the original and the copy. There's always a different value, and you can, I, it's. I mean, the more people like batik, we like it, okay. But when you talk about well, actually between me and Sharul, maybe we will have a conversation about the ownership of batik between Indonesia and Malaysia. But I mean, I think it's an ongoing conversation between what is a shared heritage and what is cultural appropriation, right? So yeah, it's a really big concept. But once we put our cultural data out there to kind of educate people, and we actually kind of lose our ownership. It's the same principle with Wikimedia. If you put your digital data from your museum on Wikimedia, and then the ownership of that data, you have to share it with the Wikipedia. If you want to change it and everything, you have to collaborate with them. I think that's the spirit of sharing.
Thank you so much, Anissa. And you really touched upon so many important points here, how a lot of this heritage is shared amongst neighboring communities and even within the wider Southeast Asian region. As Julia mentioned before, I mean, we even, there was like one common plant between all of the countries of Southeast Asia, which was Sopnat Lerak, you know, with all the different names and all the different local names. And the importance of also sharing this knowledge within the community and with the wider world. And this is actually what the why we're going to make the publication on this research freely available for everyone to know and to use and to practice. But I'll give more details on that later. And so while you're still with us, I mean, I just want to ask you, as a professional with experience in the Asia Pacific region, and now you are working in the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East, and with your background, so what do you think about Western models of conservation, which rely kind of heavily on historical listings and protective legislation? How realistic are they and applicable to the context of places like Asia or the Middle East? And I'm asking this because of last week's panel where they actually talked about cultural heritage laws. So yeah, do you think that these legislations and listings are realistic to the context of the Asia Pacific region? Or should we be focusing more on adaptive reuse and putting cultural objects and knowledge to modern use for the sake of its revival and survival?
Well, I think adaptation it should be a basic understanding when applying conservation anywhere, because I mean it's a fact that conservation is a science that focus a lot about environment, right? If your environment change, what you're going to do changes, because the object also reacted differently to different environments. So I think it's an easy question, the easiest. Okay, thank you, Lynn. And it's there is a notion that sometimes from the global south countries that we have to copy 100% of the museum practice or culture conservation practice that is being applied in the global north. But I don't think so. It's kind of impossible, and it's actually torturing us. Like now, as you can see, if you can see in the map, the distribution map of the UNESCO World Heritage, most of them are from Europe, because the standard is based on Eurocentric. It's based on Euro standard. It's difficult to apply a standard that easily being done by countries with higher GDP than the average GDP of countries from Southeast Asia or South America. It's kind of ridiculous, I think. But basically that the understanding of conservation is how to adapt to different environments. So I think there is no one monolithic answer for all problems. working on metals in the Netherlands could be a different kind of methods when you do it in a tropical Malaysia. So we have to learn like continuously all the time whenever the environment changes.
Thank you so much, Anissa, for sharing your thoughts on different conservation models and how we should really be expanding how we think and how we look at and how we practice conservation today. And with that, I think this is a great way to kind of transition towards what Lillian is trying to do in her research, which we have connected between Southeast Asia and Central America, so like across the Pacific. So Lillian, thank you for joining us today. Your work has been so important to this research project and how it provides the scientific validation for these methods. So it would be great if you could tell us a bit about your work in general and how it applies to the field of conservation. Would you like me to do your slides, or would you like to do it yourself?
I can do it. I
Okay,
think
great.
I can share it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try to share it. If something goes wrong, then I will need your help, Lynn.
Okay, I'll be on standby if you need.
But I think I can do it.
Okay.
So, first of all, I'm really happy to be with you all. Thanks for having me here. It was amazing working with you all. So, the first thing, this started because for my doctoral studies, I researched traditional Mesoamerican materials derived from plants from a scientific approach. And then I characterized molecules and compounds found on Mexican plants. And then I understood the importance of our biocultural heritage. And through science and the responsible collection, cultivation, and caring of these materials that produce those plants, I understand that they needed to be researched and preserved. And that's when I met Julia, then Lynn, Sia, and Anicia, and when this laboratory came to exist. So this laboratory was started with me and my colleague and friend Marlene Samano. She specializes in built material. She studies lime and earth, and well, I am the plants lady. So in this laboratory, we know that we have a biocultural heritage, a legacy, a traditional technologies legacy, big, but it's starting to be forgotten. And these are materials, mostly plants, that were used for making our cultural heritage. So there are lots of people that are studying these plants, like orchids for glues or agave for saponins for soaps. But the thing is that the plants are not so used anymore, and they are starting to become, in some sad cases, extinct, and in others, they are delegated to make drinks and other things. So this laboratory arises from a need to develop teaching and research activities for the study and recovery of traditional technologies, and for the development and the formulation of non-toxic materials and the conservation of the Mexican biocultural and natural heritage. And we are guided under this sustainable perspective with an impact on social well-being and trying to collaborate with educational institutions and the promotion of ecological and safe materials for restoration, the user and the environment. Because these plants provide a non-toxic alternative, and because if we don't value these materials, we can't preserve the plants. So here is this is from one of the codex, and as you can see in the up left, there's this plant, an agave, that was used for making shampoo and for cleaning clothes. It's like the saponins in Southeast Asia. And in the right, you can see two women from Oaxaca cleaning graffitis from the church with these saponins. So it works, but we have a problem. We don't use it in restoration and conservation and textiles. We use on other materials. So we needed to say, hey, these materials can work, but to see if they can work, we need to have a protocol. We need to do a methodology. We need to take this methodology and make it in the lab so we can test if it works. So we did this in Thailand in a workshop, and then we did it again in Mexico, and we did all these tests so we could say, yes, this needs to be kept because it's ecological, it's non-toxic, it's part of our legacy, and it works. And yes, it works. So we collaborate with academics, biologists, botanists, anthropologists, and conservators with international institutions to expand this research, because this is not just in Mexico, it happens in Southeast Asia, it happens in all the world. And I think this is a global thing that we are losing this touch. And the more, from the academy, we use what is modern, what is new, but we are not trying to look back. So to look back, we need to say, hey, science says you can turn back, this works. And we have friends and the support of academics from two universities, the UNAM, the Autonomous University of Mexico, and the Metropolitan Autonomous University. And we carry out lots of tests. We do colorimetry, we measure hydrogen potential, surface tension, solubility, weathering tests, simulation of climatic changes, tensile strength, yellowing tests, and gas chromatography. And we need to test this quality of the technologies and the products. Sorry. And here is the thing. We did these tests and we can say, yes, this works, this cleans, this, when you put this, all these textiles, and then you have a simulation of aging, the saponins perform better, the plants perform better than when we use that comes from the laboratory. So this is very important, that we need to change our perspective on our views on conservation materials. You see, in Mexico and in America, the use of secret recipe, 300 patents, and lab-made synthetic materials, that's a common thing. If you hear that this comes from a very, you don't know what's the material of this thing. You don't know where this comes from, but it's very expensive. And the text in the product is in English and you can't understand it, then you have to buy it. So that's what we use. And what we were thought to use was anionic and non-ionic soaps. And these are detrimental to the environment. And we know that for sure. We know that we shouldn't be using this because our Mother Earth, but we keep on using them. And now we know that we can use saponins because they are safe for the user, for our environment, and they are tried and they have been tested. And they are indeed an alternative for the conservation of a variety of materials. We started with textiles, but now we're doing also tests with mural paintings and sculptures and other kinds of materials. So we are relearning. We are doing this because we are relearning from our ancestors. We were so maybe kind of blinded for I say for myself and my students and some academics. We were kind of blinded in this thing that if it's new, it's better. But maybe if we look back, we can find better alternatives, and we have done that. And so at the same time, here is for the workshops and the students. When one of the pictures is one of my very beloved teachers. She taught me how to clean with anionic soaps, and now she was in a workshop working with agave saponins, and she was amazed, and I was amazed and so happy that she was glad doing that, and that she was looking that there are other options. So we can protect our environment, and by that we can conserve our biocultural heritage and the wonderful, wonderful plants that are involved in this. So there's a little difference between, Southeast Asia and Mexico, because here the plants are not used for materials as much. You can see them and you watch them, but you don't know if they can be used or not. So we have this little museum, plant museum in the school, and we're going to have another one, a bigger, prettier one, but now everything has been stopped. But we have agaves, orchids, plants that work for doing dyes, and some plants, they were like very little, as you can see with the small agave. They have grown now. Sorry for the picture. It is an earlier picture, but we are reproducing these plants and we are taking care of them. So if you use them, you have to keep them growing and then you protect them. And that's what we are trying to do. And we have these courses and these talks, and what we want to say is these plants need to be protected because they make materials that protect you and protect the environment. And this is worth it because it's our biocultural heritage. We need to protect our traditional technologies, and we need to look at it from a scientific perspective so we can have a methodology to say, yes, this works, no, this doesn't work. And what we have done, and also the plants that we research in our collaboration in Thailand, they work too. So we're very happy about it. And that's my work for now. That's what we do. And we are planning on growing, on testing more plants on more materials, and trying to change this view of the new materials versus the traditional ones. So this is it. Thank you all for having me here.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for sharing your work and how important it is for the survival of this knowledge and the environmental landscape and how we treat it. Because, you know, as you say so clearly, we source everything that we have and use from our landscape and from the environment. So we need to treat it well in return. And what was really interesting was showing the picture of your professor, who came to learn how to use agave saponins as a cleaner. And here we see this process of like unlearning Western methods, using these museum grade cleaners that we're told are the best and cost X amount of money and all of that. So unlearning that and now relearning these methods that were grown in our own garden, in our own environment, and practiced by our ancestors. So this is a great example of unlearning and relearning. And so we come up with these effective and less invasive solutions. And so how do you think, what is the future, the place of these methods in scholarship? How do you see the future of these indigenous methods in scholarship and professional practice?
I see a great future because when we started, I mean, just Julia came to ask me what was I doing. And then, I mean, in Mexico and in America, it was like, oh, it's kind of cute, but let's stay there, you know? And then I saw in Southeast Asia that it was more common to be in touch with these traditional technologies and with this heritage. So when I came back and when I talked with one of my colleagues, I said, what do we do to make this kind of work again, to try with the people? And she told me, through students. You need to do it through students, because in a community, if you go and say, you should start using this, and I have been in communities and they say like, yes, but it's too much hustle, and they like more the things that are new. And I can understand that, because new sounds better always, you see? And from another country, it sounds even better. So this is a hard thing, but if you go through students, it's a change. They are younger. They have this thirst for knowledge, and they have these new students, they really appreciate our traditions. And so I think that this link, and they don't go to teach them how to use their traditions. No, they go and they learn from them to use these traditions. They have more respect than we older teachers, because they are really respectful for the traditions. They want to know what they did, how, and they don't go with this idea of, I'm going to teach you how to do your traditions, you know? It's like, please teach me, I can use it in school or in the academy. And that's a very impressive thing. I'm very proud of my students. And I think this is a new thing, or new generations, they are starting to look back with awe and wanting to learn and not teach. And I really like that. I feel very happy about that, hopeful.
Well, I think this is great how actually this knowledge from our ancestors is being, how you see the future of it in your community of students. So how it's these young students who actually show interest in it and who are fostering it, cultivating it. So what has your community of students been doing in the work? How have they been participating in this?
Now I have, one of my students did a great protocol on cleaning. And I said, do you need to clean? Do you not need to clean? And he tried mostly in a community of conservators that are very, very pro cleaning. And one other of my students is doing, I really like what she's doing. She's working with communities in Oaxaca. You saw that this woman that still clean with saponins. So she's working with communities, and she's trying to make workshop so they can tell the architects that work with these big buildings to say, hey, stop, because they are using toxic soaps, toxic synthetic soaps. So she's trying to do these workshops with these women and with these architects, big architects, to say, hey, there's another way of doing it. Of course, it has to be, we need to test them, we need to say, yes, it works, and we need to have a protocol, an integrated protocol, so she can say, hey, this is a good protocol, this can work, let's try something new. And the other thing is that we are doing, you remember what we did in Thailand, that we clean cotton and silk with these happenings. We are doing more cleaning tests, and we are testing how they work before and after aging them. So we can say if it works or it doesn't work. And okay, this is, I'm going ahead because this is not published yet, but it works. It works better in some cases. And the other thing that we are doing these talks and trying to make papers and trying from the academia to be heard.
Yes, sharing the knowledge is key here. And I'll actually move over to Julia, who actually works extensively in education for conservation. So please go ahead, Julia.
Lillian's work from the scientific end is absolutely the full circle, because really, truly, conservation is bringing together, and the preservation of textiles, in this case, is the coming together of science and culture and material culture and the traditional knowledge. And so you've made a full circle, because it's actually quite difficult to say, oh, I really, really do think that using soap nut and lerak and these things are better. And really the result looks fabulous. And anyway, all the Nyonya and all the elders say that it works better. But in our own field, we actually have to quantify it. We have to analyze it. We have to show that it hasn't been destructive, or that the pH is an acceptable pH. And so this kind of quantifying is so important. And what you're doing, which is spreading that information out through action through your students, and in our workshop doing the testing together and spreading that knowledge back out into museum environment like Shaw's Museum, and where Anissa worked, and many other people that were involved in this project. It took that ancestral knowledge, quantified it, and then put it back out there with the actual people who were doing the research. And now with publications and with our publication, it's so important because we're actually up against a very big force that says you can't use those goofy little plant things. That's kind of silly. So it's really the perfect union. We couldn't have done all of this work actually without Lillian. So really fortunate to have an amazing scientist
thank you.
that
Thank
can
you.
work with us and quantify this.
Thank you. This was really amazing working with you all.
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you so much, Lillian. And actually, speaking of all the plants and the scientific validation, because we had a glitch with the slides earlier, maybe we can show our viewers some of the things that we missed in the previous slide, just to give an example of all these plants and how they can be used. So hopefully you can see my screen now this time.
Yep. And you can go down. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I believe we showed this earlier, Shah, who talked to us about smoking the textile, and this is done in Indonesia. Again, shared heritage, shared knowledge and methods. So among the 62 plants identified, soap nut was identified as a common saponin surfactant. Lillian mentioned agave in Mexico. You can use rice stalk or coconut frond ash as a bleaching agent. And just even from your common kitchen, you can use rinsed rice water and coconut water as a cleaner for silks. Side note, soap nut is also great for shampoo. Rinsed rice water is also great as a facial cleanser. And also from like many gardens in Southeast Asia, you can use betel leaf as a stain remover and pest repellent. So that's an example of like a plant having two different kinds of uses. They can also be used in treatments. So for example, you can use tea to revive batik color. You can use butterfly pea, which gives off this blue tint that will intensify your whites. Sorry, here we go. And then on the other side of the spectrum is storage, which are actually made from plants. So you can use baskets made from traditional fibers that provide light control and well-ventilated storage to actually preserve your textiles. And I'd also like to share with everybody Shah's wonderful drawings from his field research. So here you have the chicken trap, and here you also have how sonket is stretched when it's drying so that the threads don't get bent. And you also have Burmese tanika, which is traditional in Myanmar as a cosmetic product and sun repellent, has a variety of uses. And it's recorded in Myanmar as being used as a stain remover. And our researcher, Aimee Zain, who works with the museum in Myanmar, she tried it and it works. It's incredible. And then here we have a photo of a peacock feather. Julia, maybe you could tell us a bit more about the peacock feather story.
Actually, it's Shah's peacock feather. I believe, Shah, you discovered this method, and one of your informants told you that if you put the peacock feather in the container, the drawer, the repository with the textile, because of the construction of the bug's eyes, they see the peacock eye as so enormous and they get scared and they run away.
Okay, I get an opinion from entomologists from our National History Museum that the peacock's colors can attract the eyes and they keep away the ants actually, and then it distract the other pests to go to the textile. And to put a peacock, I tried once, but yes, it really works. It really works. Nature really give to us to follow then yeah, it's a gift.
It's marvelous. I just want to make a comment about the songket. Songket is a type of textile in Southeast Asia and Indonesia, Malaysia. But one of its characteristics is it's often silk with metallic thread. And one of the things that we heard over and over again from owners and from custodians and people that own songket is that you cannot clean them. You cannot get them wet because the metallic threads will unravel, they'll swell up, and it destroys them. And this goes back also to even Anissa saying, oh, just let the sweat stay on it. It leaves a nice patina and deepens the color. But the whole method of smoking or perfuming is a kind of method of dry cleaning that's actually, it's so appropriate for caring for textiles. It's such a safe path, if it's done correctly, to infuse smoke into textiles that normally are stored, folded up in very tropical climate, and they get mildewed and moldy very easily. And so by laying them out and infusing them with this myriad of herbs, actually is a disinfectant. It kills bacteria, it dries them out, and then it perfumes them. And so it's a perfect conservation solution that none of us were aware of that could actually enter into the pantheon of textile conservation practice.
Thank you, Julia. And again, to go back to the slides that we couldn't see earlier due to the glitch. So here are some photos of the elders that we interviewed for the project. So we have Elder Subi Nalan. She's transmitting knowledge to her daughter in producing and caring for abaca cloth in Mindanao in the Philippines. Here is our researcher in Laos, Vietnam, with Weaver Vandara. And there is myself when we were conducting our preliminary research with QSMT, the Queen Circuit Museum of Textiles in Prague. Now, we've just shown a few of the 62 plants that were identified in this project. And we have quite a few questions from the audience as to which plant can be used for what. And in the interest of time, I would just like to tell the viewers that actually all of this research has been compiled and is going to be published in an upcoming publication that will be available for download for free. So the actual physical copies are going to be printed in a couple weeks, and the digital version is going to be launched online shortly thereafter. So stay tuned on the CMEO SPAFA Facebook page and website when it's going to be launched, and all of you with questions out there can consult this resource. It will have a database, it will have recipes for everyone to use, and we also want to see it as a participatory endeavor. So we actually invite you to write to us, to write to the organizers. All of our emails would be included. Drop us a message on Facebook if you know of a method that should be included in there to expand it. We don't see this research as something that is closed and done, but as something, as a starting point to know more. And also, as Anissa said, as Lillian said, we also, sharing it with the wider world. So I hope that addresses some of the questions here. I would like to actually try to summarize kind of what we've been talking about here and what we've been trying to do with this research, and to just show some closing images here. So in this research, what was really exciting was how local scholars and practitioners were engaged with communities as the sources and owners of knowledge, and how to embrace the materials from your landscape and to use them. A very fun part, endearing part, was gathering and sharing stories and histories with people elders and young people. Here we've had people from all different walks of life, young, old, from different backgrounds, in the aim to develop these locally tailored preservation models. And in so doing, it's really touching upon all of these different fields, intangible cultural heritage, material culture on the one hand, and bio and natural heritage, which is going to ultimately, help to preserve our landscape and environment. And so we're going back to what Anissa was saying about, ecosystems and regenerative cycles, and also what Lillian's community of students are trying to do. And so a bit more about the publication. So we'll also have these posters. I have some in print here that you guys can put up, that will come with a hard copy of the book. And so this idea actually came from one of the people involved in the project, Pete Cry, from the Indigo community of Pre. When we had the regional forum and we asked, okay, so we're collecting this knowledge, we're all here now, how do we share this knowledge? And Pete Cry's idea, it was Pete Cry's idea to produce these posters, with his dream being to put them up in schools and community centers, so that these can be used for school projects, whether they're chemistry projects, science projects, cultural studies, and things like that, or even just having them up in a community center in the village, so that people can actually think about other plants that they have available. And then this was actually designed by Anissa's friends in Indonesia. So we actually used a network of family and friends in every part of this project, which was really fun. And I'd like to end with the story of Nong Nut, who we met in Praia, who I think, just like the community of Indigo in Bali and Lillian's community of students, really show the promising future of Indigenous knowledge. Now, what's so interesting about the story of Nut, I mean, he is an example of how human ingenuity works with the landscape and how traditional technology can meet with modern technologies. What happened was he went to a temple fair and saw someone using a traditional loom, and he thought, oh, I like that. He went home, and with the help of his father, he built his own loom. Yeah, it's quite incredible. And so not only did he build his own loom, he actually, to spin the cotton, he puts it on a bicycle, and through the spinning action, he uses it to recharge his rechargeable batteries. And in his adventures in weaving, he also decided to go into diving, and went in, did his own survey of plants in the landscape to find his own traditional dyes. So one of the pictures that you see here is what he calls his office. So it's his office in the rice field where he tries all of these different dyes from the landscape. So here you have a young man who's doing his 17-year-old boy doing his military training, who's weaving, recharging his batteries while spinning, dyeing in the rice field. And he actually keeps a collection of his samples of all these dyes, so he remembers which plant produces which dye. It's just such an incredible story to share, the story of Nong Nut. I'm sure Julia will never forget meeting him. And this really ties in also with Shah's family in Kelantan, how they were an invaluable resource in all of this. I think we have a promising future for this Indigenous knowledge, thanks to these young people, as Lillian was saying. I think that's pretty much it for now. But actually, no, I just remembered there was a question that was sent via UCLA from the Philippines, from an ethnographic museum from Orlando, which I'm going to direct towards Lillian. saying that in the Philippines, there is difficulty in sourcing non-ionic detergent to wash textiles. So what do you recommend as a substitute?
Yes. Yeah, and I want to ask another question. It has to do with this one. The thing about saponins is that they work a little bit better for polar stains. So when you treat grease, yes, of course, non-ionic and anionic soaps, they are great because they do take all the grease out. So when you search for a cleaning agent and it says it cleans even when it's cold, or you can see, even in washing dishes ads that you put a drop and the grease goes away, well, that soap is going to go to the drain and it's going to make great damage to the environment. So yeah, maybe the saponins don't work as good for cleaning grease stains. That would be I won't say that's a disadvantage because that means they are not going to pollute the environment. So maybe you have to deal with a little bit of patience cleaning or acknowledging that maybe some grease stains are going to be there forever. But it's a price that I think we are willing to kind of pay. And even if you have to clean a grease stain that is very, very staining the textile, you're going to make more damage trying to take it away. That's one. And the other thing is, yes, in Philippines, you have this syzygium that's called fruit. It's the jambul and the jambo, they call it. It's this plant, and it has lots of saponins. So this fruit, if you dry the fruit and then you process it, you can take the saponins. So you can clean with saponins. And another thing, you can also use the Castile soap. Castile soap, it's good for the environment, but it's very, very basic. It has an 8.5, almost 9 pH. So you can only use it for cotton. You couldn't use it or for linen. You can't use it for silk or for wool. So for silk and wool, you need to use acidic pH because that's the pH of the wool and the silk. So you should use saponin. It would be a great alternative, and you have saponins, very good saponins. So I think you can use this syzygium species. You can dry them, and I can give you more information as how you can take them and prepare them and use it. And you can also find saponins online. You can buy saponins from agave, from lerac, in dust, because they are still used. You can find them. So you can use saponins for silks and wools, and you can use this Castile soap for cotton and linen. And these are very, very non-toxic alternatives, safe alternatives, and they can work.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for addressing this very specific question. As for the other questions, as I said, please refer to the publication that's going to come out because the different plants will be used to treat different fibers. So I've seen a few questions on abaca cloth, on banana fibers. So you will find all of that there. If you do not find it there, maybe go into the community and find out more. Yes. And add to this wealth of knowledge. I think we're running out of time now, but I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you, Anissa. Thank you, Shaw, Lillian, Julia. Thank you to Maddie, Daiwei, Stephen, and to our friends at UCLA for giving us the opportunity to share our research.
Thank you, everyone. This is a very informative discussion. So the panel highlights the importance of local and indigenous knowledge systems in the conservation of cultural materials. The discussions also reinforce what this webinar series has stressed, that engaging communities results in a sustainable and meaningful conservation programs, heritage, or both intangible and tangible heritage. And as Julia mentioned, and the panel stressed this, the scientific process and indigenous knowledge complement each other. They're not contradictory. The panel also stressed that heritage is more often than not impacted by economic forces. The techniques discussed have also opened discussions about authenticity and context. It is admirable that we are documenting these methods because of the dangers brought by modernity. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that indigenous cultures and indigenous knowledge systems and their technologies are dynamic, as the panel discussion has underscored. But perhaps one of the key themes that we have to be always aware of, especially among us who work directly with communities, is the impact that we bring into the communities that we work with. It is a fact that traditional textile around the world have cultural meanings and that certain weaves are reserved only for specific occasions or particular individuals. However, there have been a lot of cultural appropriations around the world where entrepreneurs co-opt the design of indigenous peoples without providing any compensation to the latter. It is in the sense that communities should be able to reap the benefits of their own technology and design. It has been said that a thin line separates spectacle and heritage conservation. We argue that the line is blurred because indigenous peoples are making their history. They're making decisions that matter to them. Thus, they are producing new knowledge. So I guess that's just to link all the conversations into the wider, the broader goals of this webinar series. So with that, thank you, everyone. We invite you for our last panel next week, which will tie all of our discussions from panel 1 to panel 9 into something that's more applied. How do we move forward? How do we make what we do meaningful and also something that communities can use? So thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone, or good evening to all.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Shah, Anissa, Lillian, Stephen,
Bye.
everyone at UCLA.